All right, here with Kim Williams-Courville, daughter of 2021 Texas Track and Field Hall of Fame inductee Kermit Courville. How are you this morning?
I am great. How are you?
Doing quite well.
Good.
Congratulations on your father's induction, posthumous
Thank you.
induction into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
What kind of man was he?
I would describe my dad probably as determined, passionate, and driven. And when I talk about driven, he was always driven to win. And most people would associate that with most of the success that he had on the track.
Hmm.
But what I saw him do was teach his athletes and teach young people how to take that ability to win on the track and translate that off the track. So I think that was how he was really kind of larger than life to most of us with that driven just to win.
So, to follow up on that, it wasn't just necessarily the track success. He wanted to see them as successful uh, parents and
Absolutely.
members of society, etc.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the majority of those athletes went to college.
Hmm.
In our home, college coaches came to our house. And so I saw my dad describe and talk about his athletes and the ability to be able to get them into college was very, very important for him because he himself was an athlete who had graduated from college. And that was probably huge, a huge piece of why he did the work that he did. The track, the winning was one thing, but getting those young men to the next level um, in this thing we call life was really, I think, his life's work.
And he did this for 34 years in Galveston, more pronounced because it was during the times of segregation.
Right.
Now, he's obviously a role model during these times. How did he handle himself during these times?
That old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I would certainly use that to describe my dad. He transitioned from Central Middle School to Ball High School the year before segregation.
Okay.
So he was the first Black coach to go to that school prior to segregation. Um, and that was a heavy crown to
Hmm.
wear. That was his shoulders, on his shoulders rested what was to come. And so I think the fact that he had been through segregation with his teams, with those coaches at Central Middle School, it really got him ready or prepared for that transition. But it was difficult to say the least. When you're the first to do something, when you're the only one that's there, um, that's a big task. It took a toll on him. A lot of people say, that's a wonderful thing. You're the first, but with the first comes a lot of responsibility.
Hmm.
Uh, it also becomes he sacrificed a lot with his family as well. We all knew our role in that family to help my dad succeed in what he was attempting to do. Uh, but it was a stressful time for him because he was leading other people's children through a very difficult time while going through that difficult time himself.
But he was not just the first in regards to accomplishing a feat. He was the first as far as a very racially sensitive
Absolutely.
time, sort of like it's been a little bit earlier this year. Did he shy away from, did he shield his student athletes, or was he very open and honest with to them about what they would potentially face?
Oh, probably honest to a fault. My dad was not one ever to not be lost for words in what they were going to face. every day. They were traveling on buses at Central during a time when they would stop. They still could not eat in restaurants. They had to go through the back. I remember a time when we were driving back to Galveston and there were hecklers next to the bus.
Mhm.
And, he made everybody be quiet and use that moment to talk about how you got through something like that. And yeah, he was honest about each and everything that was going on. And those young men understood that. They knew how to carry themselves. They followed his lead. And so he did not shy away from it at all. He was very open. When he got to Ball High School,
Mhm.
the only Black coach in an all-white high school, now responsible for all white athletes. And he handled those athletes the same way he handled those Black athletes. Because remember, he still was driven to win and even helping those students understand how to maximize their talents on and off the track.
And in return, many years later, posthumously, unfortunately, the stadium is named in his
Absolutely.
honor.
Absolutely. That's almost an overwhelming thing for me to think about, just because as a young kid, I grew up in that stadium with my
Mhm.
dad. I watched him work, um, and to have that stadium have his name is it really is. It's an overwhelming feeling, but it's also a sense of pride because if anybody deserved it, he did. He sacrificed everything inside of that stadium, and that's where all of his magic happened. It didn't happen on the weekends when we saw those young men performing. It happened Monday through Thursday inside of that stadium.
What would he say about the stadium being named in his honor?
I think my dad would deflect really from himself because he always thought that he was just a vessel. And I think he would really say, just as even with this Hall of Fame induction, it was because of the young people who he had in his charge that made him great. It was also, the staff, his assistant coach, Coach Joe Dinky, was one of his athletes when he got to Ball High School. And so he became his assistant coach. Um, I don't think he would really take the full responsibility of that stadium being named after him. It
Mhm.
would really be the totality of all of the people and the hard work that had happened um, within that structure.
Fair enough. Now, yesterday, Coach Vince Anderson
Mhm,
said that your dad developed some of the best talent
mhm,
in Texas history.
mhm.
What would your dad say to that assessment?
Um, I think he would say Vince was correct. I think he would agree with you, and you used the right word, developed. Um, those guys came in that stadium, and most of them they were football players. Texas was a football state, and he had some of the best football players also on that track team, and they came into that stadium, and they had only one choice, and that was to be great. And so he developed things in them. I can give you this example. My oldest brother never knew how to long jump. He did not know how to long jump when he got to high school. His senior year, he was the state champion in the long jump. Every year there was a progression. Britt got better and better and better because that's the only choice that you had. You,
Hmm.
you, you had to leave far better than you came, and more often than not, they left as champions. They did. That was their only choice.
Well, there's no doubt about that because he had 5 boys team titles,
Mhm.
1 girls team title, which has your sister on
Right.
the team. He coached numerous individual champions, other than your brother, notably Derek Florence.
Mhm.
What are some of his proudest accomplishments as a coach, as a coach itself
Yes.
on the track and field?
Yes. I'm going to tell you this. When you look at the 70s, the dominance that my dad had in the 70s, he won
Mhm.
the state championship in 1973, 1975, and 1977. That was a huge accomplishment for him. Uh, and then there were those two in the 80s. Derek Florence was on that 86 championship team. And what was special about that was he won back-to-back state championships,
Mhm.
86, 87. That 86 team, he had one relay and the rest were field events.
Mm,
And it was so phenomenal because who does that? But my dad had scripted it.
right.
He didn't just show up at the track and said, we're going to try to see how this thing works out. He had a yellow legal pad for 34 years. Before every weekend, my dad scripted the track meet. Not only what his athletes needed to do, but what he knew the other teams could do as well. And so he was able, sometimes it wasn't always about coming in first place. You've got to come in whatever place we need you to come in so that we can get to that championship at the end of the track meet. And so that's how calculating he was about his craft. He could do that and do it very well.
Well, it's even more impressive when considering, as you know, the relays are double points in Texas, and if he only brings one and
Absolutely.
wins it with, individual events, that's even
Absolutely.
more impressive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was, it was always a challenge that probably, he was known for the sprints and for the relays. And so in that one year, to be able to not be at full strength and have, these field events that are individual and go to Austin, Texas and win a state championship, I think that's probably the proudest moment and a real feather in his cap to be able to pull that off.
What are some of your favorite memories of growing up around your father and the track, or perhaps outside of the track?
Right. I was his only kid that didn't run track, if you can believe that. But again, as I said earlier, we all knew our role in that family. I
Mhm.
did not necessarily want to be an athlete. I liked managing. I was the manager. I managed my dad, and I knew where everything was supposed to be. My favorite moments, the year, his first track meet, his first championship in 1973 was real, real special
Mhm.
because I remember sitting in that stadium. Um, and the guys, one of the moms had made crochet hats and they were purple with a gold ball. And we were really into that. Um, I also, one of my most favorite was the 1977 championship because on that team, my oldest brother won the long jump, as I stated, but my other brother, Lance, was a part of that. My cousin Vincent was a part of that. My dad. And so that had a real family feel to it
Mhm.
because it was the one championship where all of those Courvilles were really together and they won that championship. And then, of course, when my sister, the year the girls won, that was my dad's last year working. He retired that year. My sister graduated and they won the state championship. So that one was pretty special as well.
And finally, what do you believe your dad would say were he here? He goes up to the podium. We announce his name as a 2021 inductee into the Texas Track and Field Hall of Fame, what is he going to say?
I think my dad would say that he had been so blessed to be in a place and be in a position to have the opportunity to impact the lives of the community and the young people in Galveston, Texas. That was all that he wanted to do. He would thank those young people, I think, because, you know, he was always about, you don't get somewhere by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my father getting to the Hall of Fame, of course he's there, but I think that he would certainly carry each and every one of those athletes. He would carry that island, that community, because we were that. That community followed on Fridays when we went to track meets. That community followed across the causeway and came to those track meets. So it wasn't just his success. I think he would really say that his success was a matter of the impact that he had on an entire community, and be proud of that.
Yeah, because you mentioned to me before
Mhm.
that his impact stretched uh, beyond just simply the high school track. He actually set up other sporting events and like a mini Olympics down in the
Right.
Galveston Corpus area.
Right. Most of the, again, football state, football area. My dad started a program called Little Olympics in Galveston, and it gave elementary school kids, all of the elementary schools had these events, and it was a full track meet kind of. But it was to get kids involved and to love the sport, because everybody loved track. And
Mhm.
we had baseball. My brothers competed in punt, pass, and kick, but
I
there
remember that.
wasn't a track program, and so he created that. He also taught most of that town how to swim during the summer. He taught swimming, and you know, Stuart, at Central, my dad coached football. He coached baseball. He coached track. If there was something to coach at Central High School, he coached it, and so they were successful there as well. So it wasn't. Track became kind of what he was known for later in his career. But my dad had an opportunity to coach at several colleges, but he would never leave Galveston. And one of the things that he always said was, every time someone would call from a college, he'd say, these kids need me. And he just would not go. So that, I think that was just his life's work. I think he would say thank you to the association, but this was his life's work, and it was something that he was meant to do. And man, he did it exceptionally well.
No doubt about it, because he has earned his spot uh, in the 2021 Texas Track and Field Hall of Fame. And we appreciate you spending some time this morning sharing some memories.
Mhm.
And as you know, we're going to invite you and your family and friends back in 2022 when this pandemic is out of our way,
Right.
so we can celebrate two classes at once in
Okay.
person and have a really big party for everyone.
Right. Well, let me say this on behalf of my family,
Yes, ma'am.
uh, on behalf of every athlete that my dad has ever coached, and on behalf of the city of Galveston and the Galveston Independent School District, I thank you. This is truly an honor that we accept, that we embrace. There is one thing that I wish my dad were here
Mhm.
to see the real fruits of his labor post coaching. But we're here. I'm glad that we're here to accept it for him. So thank you on behalf of all of us for this amazing honor.
We appreciate it, Kim.
All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
All
We'll
right.
talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon.